everyone. Welcome back to the Dish on Aging tip of the day. Today is Monday, September 27th, 2021. For those of you who are new to the Dish on Aging, let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Maureen Sweeney. I am a clinical psychologist who specializes in geriatrics, and I practice here in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. Today I want to talk about an important topic in retirement, and the topic is it's called financial literacy or fiscal literacy. This has become a hot topic, I'm going to say, in the last month or so. It's actually been a topic that's been discussed not just here in the United States, but internationally. What fiscal literacy in retirement is about? It's basically about economics across the lifespan. How well do each of us understand economic concepts like, investment portfolios? One of the questions to evaluate fiscal literacy I don't know the answer, it has to do with the relationship between the bond market and the interest rate. And it also has to do with how people, what spending behavior, saving behavior people use across the lifespan. The idea of fiscal responsibility related to aging is a concept that many of us are going to be able to understand. The concept is that we retire at a point where we have enough money in a savings account to pay all our bills and to support ourselves without running out of money. It also has to do with a concept, I think it's a more traditional, like 1950s concept, but what do I know? I'm a Generation X person. But in terms of what's being talked about in fiscal literacy in 2021 is a concept that throughout our lifespan, our working years, that the last few years of our employment will be the years that we're making the most money. And for many people, that may be true. For others, it may not be true. So there's this model of fiscal responsibility it's responsibility, but it's also fiscal literacy. So I was reading some kind of general media and also some professional level documents this last week on this idea of financial literacy. Now, let me tell you who falls short here in the United States and then internationally. Women. Retired women have significantly lower levels of fiscal literacy, and that tends to have a negative impact on kind of financial decisions, behavior as far as saving and even making money or making investments. And then that tends to have a negative impact on their retirement. Also, not just women in general, then also women of color. So African American, Hispanic women actually are significantly rated as not being knowledgeable about fiscal literacy. So the idea is being pushed in geriatrics or retirement health right now is the idea that we have to do a better job of teaching everyone, every American, every person worldwide, but particularly women and particularly women of color, about how important it is across the lifespan to invest money, save money, don't overspend, live on a budget, and so on, so that retirement can be healthy and happy, financial health, and then an emotional happiness that goes with that. So I am here talking to, I'm hoping, a audience of retired people, and I know even myself at age 53. It's not going to do us, those of us baby boomers or Generation X people, any good to start learning about how we should have been saving money in our 20s. But let me tell you, well, you can start talking about how we should be saving money and not spending money in our 50s, that's for sure. Let me tell you how this concept is impacting the kinds of problems that people are coming to a psychologist because they're anxious and depressed in their retirement. And let me tell you how it's presenting. It's not presenting as I didn't invest in enough of investment profile, because I'm talking to people where the idea of a pension or a 401k just was never in the picture, or maybe it was. What I'm talking to is people who said, I didn't even think about how I was going to pay or not be even able to pay my bills when I wasn't working anymore. Some of this conversation by economists about lack of fiscal literacy throughout the lifespan and how it has a negative impact on financial status in retirement. One of the impacts about American women not engaging in behaviors that prepare themselves well enough to have enough money in savings by the time retirement arrives is many of those women are finding that they are working well past retirement age. So many women are finding pressure to continue to work. I'll let you all decide if that shoe fits. So the question is, what do we do here? What do we do now? I'm going to sort of use this conversation about financial literacy and retirement, and I'm going to put a little spin on it, and I'm going to go off in a direction. I'm going to go off in that direction of who in the last year, of the people I have talked to that I've read about in the literature that I'm hearing about who are retired, and their financial situations or problems or crisis, how is that presenting? And then how that has a huge impact on mental health functioning, family functioning, social functioning, leisure functioning. And here's what I can tell you in summary, okay? Everything AARP is telling us to do about saving money, two things that AARP tells us to do that we all have to really take seriously. At age 50 years old, AARP recommends that everyone stop giving big gifts to family. No matter how much money you have, no matter how much money you have in retirement, no matter how little you have, the idea being that any supplemental or extra money or discretionary extra spending money you have at age 50, AARP says put that away into savings. You're going to need it at some point in your retirement. So that's word number one. The other is AARP recommends if somebody is approaching retirement age or thinking about retiring, AARP for years has recommended that whatever your take-home salary is while you're working full-time, cut it in half and then adjust your life so that you're living on half of your take-home salary so that you know what that is like. And for many people, that can be a very eye-opening experience. Now, as a geriatric psychologist, I'm receiving calls from people who maybe they've been retired for 2 or 3 years, the pandemic hit, and they're calling because then maybe a medical condition hit or they fell and now they're recuperating from a broken hip, a broken leg. And it's the 20th of the month, they've got $7 in the checking account and no food in the cupboard. And so they are understandably anxious and depressed. So the first thing I say, and they don't want to reach out to family members because they don't want to cope be a burden on family members. So the first thing I'll say is, call the area on aging. You've got to or qualify for SNAP benefits, low income, not enough money to get through the month. For a lot of women who live in Pennsylvania, especially Bucks County, once they retire, their retirement, the combination of their retirement benefits and their Social Security check, particularly if they were homemakers, has them living below the poverty line. And they can't afford to live. And that's the whole idea why senior housing, when I say senior housing, I'm not talking about one of these $300,000 down to go into a continuum care facility. I'm talking about Senior housing is HUD housing for seniors only, age 62 and older, where your rent is subsidized by the federal government. So your rent is calculated out to be approximately 30% of whatever your monthly income is. And so if your monthly income is, let's round it to 1,000, your rent is 300, then you can subtract out of that any out-of-pocket medical expenses down to, I think, $250. So can you imagine if you went to your rental company or to your local tax assessor or to your mortgage company and said, look, you all have to get on the same page and I only pay 30% of what comes in. That's not the real world, and that's the reason why senior subsidized housing was invented. And here in Northeast Philadelphia, Bucks County, Montgomery County, we have some of the nicest facilities, the nicest and newest buildings in the communities where we live. So it can be a really good option. So let's go back to that hypothetical situation where I've got someone on the phone. I'm providing them the care for the depression and anxiety. And come to find out, they've got so much money coming in at the beginning of the month, they don't qualify. They might qualify for senior housing, but they don't qualify for food stamps. They don't qualify for any, what's it called? PACE Net, which helps low-income Pennsylvania residents with their medication copays and or deductibles, or just help paying for their medication. They have too much money coming in. And then I hear a story. It may relate to some of you, may not. The story I hear totally is in alignment with what every single financial advisor has said, every single AARP magazine article about how you're going to pay your bills in your retirement, and everything about baby boomers and debt. And what it is what we're finding is that, and so that's what the presentation is. The person has so much charge card debt in retirement that they have an income, they're making the minimum payments on the charge cards. Their income is such they don't qualify for any financial help or assistance that most seniors would qualify for. And so they're kind of stuck. So the answer to this person, I'm like, okay, you got to get all your kids in the room and you got to let them know. I found myself over the last couple of months, I've had a number of calls, people in these situations. I've been doing this geriatric work now, private practice for 15, 16 years. I've been doing it for 20, 25 years in general. Before I set up my practice, and I have never had I've never seen people in this situation before. Usually when somebody had no money and no food for the cupboards, they qualified for food stamps, or SNAP as they're called here in Pennsylvania. And or they qualified for help with the heating bills because of low income, and they qualified for help with medication because of the low income. And what I'm seeing contributing to symptoms of anxiety and depression is, good golly, charge card bills so high. And I'll say to the person, what were you thinking? Well, they'll say, I was thinking I did retire from the job and I had a good income, and then I had the part-time job and things were going along fine, and then I lost my balance and the broken leg and the complications and the MRSA, and then, this is all hypothetical, and then the pandemic. And so that extra $200, $300, $400, $500, $600 a month, that part-time job was bringing in didn't work. So I started putting things on charge cards, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't even know how to advise people in this situation, because for the last 15 to 16 years, I would say, call Area on Aging, see if you can get a caseworker helping to fill out the forms for the food stamps and so on and so forth. And I stepped back and I was talking to a colleague, and they said they need credit counseling. And then I find out more. And again, I'm not using any specific one example, I'm using generic. And these generic presentations, all roads lead back to people doing everything AARP has told people not to do. And it's all the roads lead back to everything I have heard across my adult life over the last 30 years about things that every working age person should be doing. And that is living on a monthly budget, having a budget, knowing how much money you spend every month, staying within that budget. No matter how much debt you have, always put money into savings. Think about retirement. Think about the rainy day fund. And take care of yourself first, you and your immediate family, your dependents first. Then start thinking about other family. I've totally got incredible respect over the last 15 years, the idea that charity starts at home. If you've got a family member who's going through something, a bad year or two, and needs help, that once you have your bases covered, then it's okay at that point to help them if you can, and only temporarily. AARP is talking about how, I don't know what percentage of baby boomers are past the age of 50, and they are financially supporting a younger family member who doesn't live with them, but for whatever reason doesn't have enough income to support themselves. And it's to the tune, on average, of $1,000 a month. And AARP just puts this data out there. They say, and it's like a high percentage of baby boomers. And I start to see that, because then it'll be, seniors saying, oh yeah, my disabled son, okay, he has a place to live, he can live with me. When I suggest, because this is what AARP and financial advisors say, is that when you have a reduction in income, and usually that happens to most people in retirement, the reduction is half of the income you're already living on. If your income comes down in half, your spending must come down in half. And most of our monthly spending goes to our housing, house, apartment, condominium, whatever it is. And what I'm finding is that those who are in over there, I'll use the phrase up to it in alligators, they're in their own house, can barely make the bills, and they have younger adult family members living with them, not contributing to the household. And it's just all kinds of mess. And I can imagine, I'm now understanding my local area on aging. I have made an observation. I don't know if I've talked about it in a video yet. And I don't know, the last 6 months or so, I'm noticing that my local area on aging has streamlined. They've actually gotten more efficient in what they're doing as an area on aging. And I go on their website, and they're all about assessments and referrals. They're not about giving anybody anything, but what they're giving is really good information, really good assessments, really good referrals. And I've sent people to the area on aging, and then I'll talk to them a couple months later, and they'll say, here's what I didn't like about the area on aging. And I'll say, what's that? And they said, they didn't advise me on what I really needed to do. And when I told them that, they said, no, we are here to tell you what your situation is, what you might qualify for. And we're then going to ask you, would you like us to help you fill out the forms? It's up to you to decide how you want to move forward. And this is very important, because if somebody is moving forward, they don't want to sell their house, they want to stay in their home. A lot of that is personal value. What is most important to you? What do you value as most important? If you apply, say, for Medicaid waiver, where the area on aging will help you fill out forms so that you can get the county to help pay for at-home health care up to a point, home health aides in your home so you don't have to go to a nursing home. Part of that, filling out those forms in that program, is you have to you can live in your home, but you have to sign your home over to the state as part of a Medicaid application. That is a value judgment. Somebody might not want to do that. They may say, look, I've got 3 kids, I've got, this home earmarked for them. And all 3 kids all 3 in-laws are saying, no, pop-up. That's your house for you to live in. We have our homes. You still have a mortgage. We don't. you're to use the equity in that home to get your care. And so that's very much a value statement. And what I'm realizing is that as families, meaning intergenerational families, baby boomers are transitioning into retirement years with generally, I can't say everyone, I don't even know what percent, because when somebody contacts a mental health provider for care, that's not the entire, it's not a sample, it's not a representative sample of all baby boomers. But what I'm seeing is stressors that are contributing to anxiety and depression that I've never seen before. And these are stressors that the solution to the problem, they're not geriatric solutions, they're every age group. What is any one of us going to do if at any age, whether we're in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or early 60s, and our income gets cut in half, and many people have experienced that in the last year and a half with the pandemic, then what are we going to do? The difference is with retirement, we've all got a calendar. We know where our retirement age is. What we underestimate is how long our bodies are going to allow us to work. We don't realize we can be forced, once your retirement age, if you get a medical problem and you run out of your sick time and your unpaid time off, you can get forced into retirement. So you didn't plan on retiring at 68 or even 71. You planned on working till 80 till you got that mortgage paid off or those charge cards paid down. And again, these are demographic statistics, topics related to financial literacy, that the information has been out there, and the percentage of us who have not followed this advice, I don't want to say over the last 30 years, I'll say like over the last 3 months. For those of us who are not following this advice now, to the best of our ability, then we're really setting ourselves up for an emotional challenge, an unhappiness, a struggling in our retirement. And we don't need that. I've had many people say that I didn't work all these hours, all these years to be this unhappy at this point in my life. So, point is financial literacy. My take on financial literacy in retirement is I want every person, if you can, I don't want anybody to get stressed or anxious or lose sleep because I'm saying this. If you can, look at your checkbook, try to put a budget together. How much am I spending every month on average? How much do I have coming in? And then when do I run out of money? And so I can be a happy person. And as these tips on aging move forward, I'll be adding extra tips in. At what point, what can you do if you're up to it in alligators at this point? And we'll